With Iowa Monday fast approaching, let's break this down to simple terms. It is no longer about policy. It is no longer about issues. It is all about the GOP's leading contender and how he will dictate from here on out everything from tweets to debates. This, as every other candidate, seeks to find new and exciting ways to keep the focus on them and their message. And it could be that with Donald out of the way Thursday night, maybe someone else might actually chisel into his lead and change everything. Now, in seeking to change the direction of America, one former presidential candidate believes he is backing the only person who can actually win for Republicans. Former New York Governor George Pataki joins us with his take. And for those seeking to trust in Republican leadership while the fur flies every which way and turns families against one another, I've got something I dare every Republican to consider as we head for November. The gauntlet's dropped. Let's see who's got the guts to pick it up. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Wednesday, January the 27th, 2016.
What games Roger Ailes is playing, but what's wrong over there? Something's wrong. But when they sent out that press release talking about, I said, what are these people playing games? So most likely, I won't be doing the debate.
What was once the shining example of how democracy works, now looked upon with disdain and plenty of laughter, not only from world powers who once envied us, but from within our own political parties as the drama and dark comedy that is the 2016 presidential election cycle heads into its first major test. Where there should be battles over issues, there are instead battles over being the candidate with the best one-liner. Where there needs to be a solid discourse about the direction of the nation, there is solid disdain for not only the political system, but the voters themselves. And smack dab in the middle of it all is the man many believe is the best to lead America into the future. Others see as the hard-jawed egotist who will say anything and do anything to be elected. And we're coming to the point where America will need to decide if Donald Trump is the change we need or the dark desire we dare not entertain. Let's begin by welcoming back the presidential historian and author of the New York Times bestseller Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan, Craig Shirley, joined by the media analyst and contributor at the Media Research Center, Dan Joseph. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to begin right now with another soundbite from Donald Trump. During his press conference yesterday, he laid out one of the reasons that he will not, so far, be attending tomorrow's Republican debate. Here's what he said.
Megyn Kelly shouldn't be in the debate. I don't care about Megyn. When Megyn Kelly didn't ask me a question, she made a statement last time. I thought it was inappropriate.
Dan, let's take this head on. He says it's about Megyn Kelly. Others say Megyn Kelly. Come on. In essence, this is a strategist. This is a brilliant move because he makes it all about Donald 24/7, and he can't make a mistake on the debate stage and no one can beat him. Yes?
Well, first of all, let me start off with a joke. Two Corinthians walk into a bar. They see Megyn Kelly, and they both run away screaming. Now, that joke aside, I do not actually think this is about Megyn Kelly. I don't believe even Donald Trump believes that her questions were unfair. That's just an excuse he uses because he has an excuse for everything. Donald Trump understands, rightfully so, that he wins either way. If he goes to this debate, or if he doesn't go to the debate and then he ends up losing the Iowa caucus, much like Reagan did in 1980, he can say, well, I didn't go to the debate, so that's enough of an excuse, and I'm fine in New Hampshire, I'm fine in South Carolina. If he doesn't go to the debate and then he ends up winning the Iowa caucuses anyway, he can say, look how strong I am. I didn't even show up at the debate, and I still won. But again, you have to look back at the history of Ronald Reagan. When he did not go to that final Iowa debate, he lost to George H.W. Bush by 2 points, making George H.W. Bush a credible candidate where he really wasn't otherwise before. So there is danger in it, but Donald Trump, so far nothing has scathed him. In my view, this probably won't either.
And right on the other side of things, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. I go right to Craig Shirley. Craig, even you have said when Ronald Reagan didn't show up for the Iowa debate in 1980, it was not because of some female reporter that he ducked the debate or a fight with a media outlet. It is not the same thing.
No, it's really not, Ed. On a superficial level, there are some comparisons, but when you dig down deeper, Reagan was far and away the front runner for the 1980 nomination. He was leading in Iowa early polls by some accounts of 30, 40 points. He was proceeding with an ultra cautious stratagem, and his advisors believed that the only person who could hurt Ronald Reagan at that point was Ronald Reagan, and the safe course to pursue was for him not to participate in the Des Moines debate. Now, Reagan, of course, had been a local hero there in the 1930s. He was a radio talk show host and was a local celebrity, and he was thought well of in Iowa. And this really turned off a lot of people. A lot of people took it personally because they'd known Dutch Reagan from the early days, and that he snubbed them. They really took it out on him, and they said, most people said that why they were voting against Reagan was because he had refused to participate in the debate, but also he hadn't campaigned in Iowa at all, whereas Bush had been there for 40, 50 days campaigning. So that's really the real story of why he lost Iowa. But in a way, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to him because it kickstarted his campaign. He fired his consultants and he went out and campaigned the way he liked to campaign, and he won New Hampshire in a landslide and then went on to win the nomination.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's talk about some of the sideshows, if you will, because Donald Trump loves to go on Twitter accounts and he loves to go out and take people on there. He did it here where he sent out a couple of tweets. I refuse to call Megyn Kelly a bimbo because that would not be politically correct. Instead, I will only call her a lightweight reporter. And the statement put out yesterday by Fox News was a disgrace to good broadcasting and journalism. Who would ever say something so nasty and dumb? Dan Joseph, let's be real honest here. Donald Trump has said some pretty nasty things in the past. This is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black, if you will. But is this not just another great example of what Donald Trump understands the others don't? This is a new political paradigm we're in. This is bread and circuses. He's giving his followers exactly what they want, and he knows that and he knows that nobody else can come back and do it just as well.
Donald Trump is not a stupid man. I don't believe this has anything to do with media, with Megyn Kelly. This decision is purely strategic because, let's face it, I think Donald Trump understands that his greatest weakness in this campaign is his performances in debates. He hasn't been impressive in any of them. He's not a policy.
But wait a minute, Dan, say that again. When you say his performance in debates, there are people who will tell you he won every debate.
Well, yeah, the people on fake polls on Drudge Report and stuff will say he won every debate. All serious analysis says that, Rubio, Cruz, even sometimes Fiorina have come out as the most intelligent, most policy-minded conservatives on that stage, not Donald Trump. He's sort of a sideshow. I'm actually very excited about this debate, more so than any of them, because Donald Trump won't be there to distract people with, talk about birtherism and all this other crazy stuff that he's been, but you're right, the average low information voter likes what Trump is putting out there, and they are this is why he's doing this. He doesn't have to go on the stage if he doesn't want to, because he and his voters will accept his excuses no matter what they are. And you know what? I don't really think an intelligent guy like Ted Cruz or a very good debater like Marco Rubio, I'm not sure either of them can do anything about it, but at least it'll be a debate about policy this time. It won't be a debate about the silly things like making Megyn Kelly feel bad about her appearance or where Ted Cruz was born. I'm hoping that that's not the story coming out of this. I hope Donald Trump isn't the story coming out of this debate, but I think it probably will be.
So let's dig on that a little bit. And if you will, Craig, what Dan just said here. Jeb Bush is now in at least one poll that is a questionable poll, is in second in New Hampshire. Ted Cruz has basically said to Donald Trump, I'll take you mano a mano, one-on-one. George Pataki, whom we're going to talk to later here in the show, has endorsed Marco Rubio. So do you, knowing full well what goes through these debates, see this as a great opportunity where all of these other candidates can really make some hay? Or does it really matter at this point? It won't matter what they say because you can't get away from Donald Trump, and he's going to own it even if he's not in the room.
I think he's going to own it if he's not in the room, and in a way he probably owns it even more simply because he's not in the room. Look at what we're talking about. We're talking about Donald Trump. They're talking about it on every radio station, every Twitter, every Facebook, every website. They're talking about Donald Trump not debating. If he was debating, we'd be talking about other things. So he's already proved that he owns the debate. But Dan is right, is that it will prove who's going to come in second, and that's going to set up really the fight, the dusk of the gods fight between who's going to be the Republican nominee. Is going to be Donald Trump or whoever comes in first or second in Iowa and first or second in New Hampshire.
Okay, let me get to this then. I got 60 seconds left, and I want to get, hang on one sec, Dan.
For anybody to catch him, even if that's the case.
I'm just about out of time here. I got 1 minute left, so I'm going to give you each 30 seconds here. To you first, Craig. Is it just possible, though, that Donald Trump could have miscalculated here and that this will be his downfall?
We are in uncharted territory, Ed. We really don't know. Nobody foresaw the rise of Trump. Nobody foresaw that he would be able to sustain this way without really doing anything in terms of very little in terms of policy or politics. It's been all personal. So, I think we're all, if we're honest with ourselves, we're mystified as to what is keeping him afloat right now. And I think we're equally mystified. You know, when he attacked John McCain, everybody said, well, that's it. And he rose in the polls. And everybody said when other candidates attacked him, he said, well, that'll draw blood. And it didn't draw blood.
And it didn't draw much of anything, actually. I got to move on real quick. 20 seconds to you then, Dan. Is it possible that he miscalculates and he will insult the Iowa voters here who will caucus on Monday and may turn against him?
Craig Shirley is absolutely right about this. We as pundits have become humbled due to the Donald Trump candidacy because we absolutely have no idea what is going to happen or how he functions. But I will say this one thing. If Donald Trump thinks he's Ronald Reagan, he is very, very mistaken. He doesn't have that personality and he doesn't have that political insight. And if anything's going to bring him down, it's his own, inability to realize that.
All I'll say to that is, well, Dan, there you go again. Dan Joseph, Craig Shirley, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We'll look forward to talking to you again real soon. The lessons of Donald Rumsfeld, how little we've learned, next on The Hardline.